So when El Salvador became the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender, most people, myself included, could not even point to El Salvador on a map, and most people had never heard of the country before. And it looks as if the country of Oman is continuing that trend, because this week, the country came out and the government announced that they're going to be investing $1.1 billion into Bitcoin mining for the country. But furthermore, the government actually said, hey, look, we've been investigating Bitcoin as well as its monetary policy for a number of years now, and we actually believe that it is Sharia law compliant, meaning that the government of Oman has essentially just de-risk Bitcoin for the 1.8 billion Muslims on the planet today who are fed up with fiat money that is actually running in opposition with their faith, okay? Muslims do not like money that has interest attached to it, okay? So let's start breaking down this announcement a little bit further, okay? Most people have never heard about Oman, okay? So it is a tiny little country in the Middle East. They have a population of around 4 million people. So again, that is even smaller than the population of El Salvador. But something very interesting about Oman is, yes, in terms of their size, they are something like the 71st largest country in the world in terms of its actual landmass. So again, it's a very small country like El Salvador, but Oman is a little bit of a heavy hitter in the regions that actually matter. They are the 21st largest oil producing country in the world. So many of these countries in the Middle East have very, very abundant stores of energy, in particular oil, and Oman is one of these countries. And now it is these abundant energy resources in the country that is making it very, very cheap to actually mine a Bitcoin. This map here actually tracks the cost that each country has to pay on average to mine one Bitcoin. So it obviously takes into consideration the varying energy prices in each country. So we can see here in Oman, in the top right-hand corner of this graph, it actually costs Oman around $11,000 to mine one Bitcoin. And again, today, price of a Bitcoin's around $26,000 at the time of recording. I hope it's a little bit higher by the time we release this video, but this just shows that there's a big, large differential in the amount of actual cost it takes to mine one Bitcoin versus the amount of potential profit you could get if you are a miner in Oman mining for Bitcoin. And again, this could potentially be the reason for why Oman has had its eyes on Bitcoin for a couple of years now. Most people could be a little bit taken aback by this announcement that came out this week. It surprised some, but Oman has actually been investing into Bitcoin mining since 2022. So as we can see here from this little headline, Oman's sovereign wealth fund actually invested into Crusoe Energy. And some of you guys might actually recognize that name, Crusoe Energy. And we did cover them a few weeks ago in a video looking at the World Economic Forum's documentary style video where they actually said, look, data centers are good for the environment. And again, let's remember, in that video, the World Economic Forum did not mention Bitcoin by name, but they were interviewing people from Crusoe Energy.
One of the key problems we're focused on emission reduction is called flaring. Flaring happens either in the oil field or in landfills where you have this waste stream of gas that's associated with oil production or happens from decomposition of landfill. Crusoe does is we actually build, operate, and manage these mobile and modular data centers that we co-locate on location with these waste sources of energy. And then we use those waste methane streams to power these mobile modular data centers. And so by doing that, not only do we create a massive emission reduction from this previously wasted source of energy, but we can also produce ultra low cost computing infrastructure by harnessing this otherwise stranded form of energy.
We are going to come back to Crusoe Energy in a moment and look at the other countries who also invested into Crusoe Energy in June 2022 when they did run this $350 million fundraising. that the sovereign wealth fund from Oman actually invested in, because there's some very other interesting names in there. But I want to first put this $1.1 billion investment into a little bit of context, okay? When we look at the largest holders of Bitcoin around the world, we can see Michael Saylor is one of those, okay? He has around $4 billion worth of Bitcoin in control in his corporation at MicroStrategy. And think about all the press and all the news that Michael Saylor has gotten because of this investment, okay? But just think about how little attention this recent announcement by Oman has actually gotten, okay? They've invested $1.1 billion. That's 25% of the size of Michael Saylor's stake into Bitcoin. So again, I just think this news is being kind of overlooked. And I think a lot of people aren't paying attention, because I believe we should be watching this very closely. I think this is the beginning of the largest energy-rich countries transitioning from the petrodollar system to the Bitcoin energy-backed system, okay? Because, again, we're going to go back to that $350 million fundraising round that Crusoe Energy ran in June of 2022. Because guess who else actually invested into it? Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. Again, who is Saudi Arabia? One of the largest oil producers in the world. So we have Oman and Saudi Arabia have been quietly kind of investing into Bitcoin mining for at least a year now, okay? And I believe we're starting to watch the dominoes fall, and I believe this is the beginning of a broader trend. So of course, I'm talking about nation states investing into Bitcoin mining. That's the trend we're talking about, but I believe that this announcement by Oman could actually begin a dominoes of a different form of trend, okay? Let's begin to ask ourselves what happens when the largest religion on the face of the planet actually begins to recognize, hey, Bitcoin is actually in line with my faith, okay? Now, of course, we're talking about the Muslims. There's 1.8 billion Muslims on the planet today. Many of them practice Sharia law, and that is the law that Oman's government actually mentioned by name. They said, we've been investigating Bitcoin and its monetary policy for years. We believe that Bitcoin is Sharia law compliant, okay? So what is going to happen if 1.8 billion Muslims on the planet begin to recognize that Bitcoin is more in line with their faith than the interest-bearing fiat system is that they all despise, okay? They hate taking on loans, and they hate the fact that interest is attached to money that goes against their faith. Now, this announcement is huge, but I don't think Oman is the only Muslim country that has made some moves into Bitcoin. Earlier in the year, we looked at Indonesia, who of course is the 4th largest country in the world, and what one of their very popular politicians has been saying about Bitcoin. And guess what? The Indonesian election is coming up later on in this year, and Ridwan Kamil, who is already the governor of over 50 million people in the country, is running for that election. He is one of the 4 politicians who could become the next president of Indonesia, and he has said some pretty bullish things about Bitcoin mining in the past. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about why the 1.8 billion Muslims on the planet are beginning to recognize the superiority of Bitcoin, you can definitely check out the video that we did record on Indonesia. I'll pop a link to that one right there. And while we are talking about Bitcoin mining, I would be remiss if I didn't mention we also filmed a video looking at the Bitcoin nation state hash rate. You guys can find a link to that video right there. And with all that said, I hope you guys loved today's video, and I hope you love the 2 videos that are popped up on screen right now. I'll see you all in the next one.